So thank you all for being here, or thank you so much for being here. I can't tell you just the overwhelming amount of people who are excited to come. So I thought this room was going to be too big. It seats about 250 people. And then I opened it up. I was like, oh, if we get 50 people there, I'll be excited. And then within 12 hours, there were 300 people registered, and I had to put up a waiting list, and then another 300 people registered, and I had to close the waiting list. And then the snow came. Or didn't come. But anyway, here we are. We're so excited to have you. So what we're going to do is, again, this is all for you and for you also. A lot of you put in questions ahead of time when you registered to be here. And so I've kind of pulled those questions together, and we're going to ask them to Dr. Becky. But I would like to start with, I feel like I get a little of dealer's choice here, host privileges. So I get to kind of start with some of my questions, and then we'll get into others. But just to frame what we're doing here, I'll tell you as a kind of a fun story as I look out and I see even my neighbor here, because my neighbor always makes me think of this. And when I told her to come, and she was very excited to be here. And my neighbor is like a world-class cancer researcher. I mean, she's literally saving lives, curing cancer. But she has 2 young children at home, and every time I see her with the young children, it feels like those children they're winning. And every time I see this, I think, oh my gosh, is parenting harder than curing cancer? And I think that's what a lot of our audience is here. We have some incredible people in this audience. I know just from the area we live in, the Triangle. I mean, we have people curing cancer. We have incredible surgeons. We have incredible scholars, the leaders in their fields, and then we're all struggling with parenting. And so I just wanted to start with a question that is near and dear to my heart as someone who teaches entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship students. And one of my favorite classes here is a class called Learning to Fail. And so what I found is that people really struggle with failure and understanding that failure is learning. And so, so I guess one of the questions I have for you to kick off with is, how do you think about teaching children to appreciate and benefit from all the valuable lessons in failure?
I want to answer that, and I want to answer a question I thought you were going to ask, which is why is parenting so hard? Okay, because
Let's do both.
So that's where my mind already started. I was preempting. So let me start with that, and then I'll get to how we help kids appreciate failure, because to me that's actually at the heart of our approach, is how important it is for kids to be good at struggling. Like my own kids. To me, that's like the number one thing I focus on. I want them to be really good at struggling. Why is parenting so hard, even compared to curing cancer research, or all the other hard jobs a lot of us have, or things we've done in life? Nobody ever expects a doctor to become an amazing doctor overnight. And I've never met someone who says, I have amazing cancer research instincts, and so, which maybe they do. I mean that. And so as a result, I didn't go to medical school, and I kind of follow someone on Instagram for a reel. I have like 60-second tips here and there, and that plus my instincts. I'm a doctor. Do you want to come to my office? I'd be like, yeah, no. Right? We don't expect CEOs to be great CEOs overnight. In fact, we almost look down on a CEO who doesn't have an executive coach. We definitely don't expect athletes to be amazing basketball players just because they have natural athletic instincts. The best basketball players go to the best training camps and probably pay a lot of money for the best coaches. And nobody says that means they're bad basketball players. In some ways, it holds together. You're an amazing basketball player. You deserve amazing resources. I definitely would never get on a plane with a pilot who told me I just kind of figured it out from a podcast. I'd be like, well, I'm going to go with the person who went to school. And parenting is really the only job that is both. It is so hard and so impactful. And I think we've actually all internalized the nasty cultural message that we should be able to figure it out on our own. And more than good inside, one day leaving a mark on the world, I mean this for our different approach to parenting, which secret, all of us know here, is more about us parents and healing ourselves and becoming a sturdy leader than anything else. Honestly, more than that, what I think was more impactful is if in years from now, people say, I'm a parent. Like, I shouldn't just read a book when I'm pregnant. Like, I want to invest my energy, my time, and I'm going to put it out there. My money, that's where my values are. We all invest our money where our values are. I want more, not because there's something wrong with me, but because there's so many things that are amazing about me. And then finally it will be looked at like being a doctor or being a pilot or being a CEO, where getting support is the thing you say to your friend, yeah, of course I invested in that. And I think a lot of you here, I see our members. I'm not even just talking about our membership. You might be like, I really should call that therapist or that parenting coach, or no offense, Dr. Becky, there's someone else online I like better than you. I would honestly be like, cool, go get that person's course. This is like really, that is actually what I want everyone to leave with more than anything else, because when we don't have that, we tell ourselves it's our fault. And we tell ourselves that that help is expensive when probably we spend money in just other ways. Okay, now, why is it important to teach kids how to fail? Fail, I would say, and in some ways it's just a word. I don't love that word. It feels so final. I don't know, if I think about like, I don't ever think I failed at anything. And by the way, that's not a way of being like, I'm amazing. I've struggled in a million things. I'm struggling in a million ways now. Failure, maybe just to me, it feels like this like period. I don't like things that seem so final because it's anti-learning. Right? So I'll paint a visual, and I think it applies to academics. I think it applies, and Aaron and I were talking about this for his class, but it applies to almost anything else, where we all start at being unskilled at something. Or another way of saying is our starting point is not knowing, whatever it is. Kids start not knowing how to read, right? You might start, I don't know, not being very good at doing a crossword puzzle. It could be anything. You start at not knowing. And all of us like to get to this point because it's just easier and it feels good. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's knowing or being proficient or being skilled at something, right? By the way, managing our emotions also has that. We are all born with all of the feelings and none of the skills. Feelings without skills always come out as bad behavior. That's all bad behavior is. Feelings that overpowered skills. And for generations, we've tried to punish the behavior. But that doesn't make sense. Nobody learns how to swim by being sent to their room, right? You'll never be like, that's an inspirational intervention, right? No, right? And the feelings aren't the problems either. I mean, I don't know about any of you, but I've never been successful at like figuring out how to not be jealous or how to not be mad. Like the feelings win every time. So if there's feelings without skills, guess what the answer is? Leveling up the skills. We have to build skills to go from being not very good at managing emotions to being good at managing emotions, from not knowing how to read to reading, from not knowing how to do algebra to not being able to be a very coherent writer in our English essay to doing that. And there's a space in between. More and more, especially in today's world, where technology has made our body accustomed to instant gratification, we all have the urge. And unfortunately, there's a lot of reinforcement where the space between not being good at something and being good at something, we expect to be like this. No space. And that's when you hear kids say things like, I can't do this. I'm not good at this. I'm stupid. None of those things are true. What they're saying is I'm having a really hard time tolerating the space between here and here. And what I always teach parents is one of my favorite workshops in our membership. It's called the Frustration Tolerance and Resilience workshop. Is that if you start at not knowing and you end at knowing, or not skilled and skilled, this space in between, I call, has a name. It's called the learning space. And the learning space has one feeling that you're supposed to feel. That's the right way to feel. Who here, what? And none of you members who have taken it, Megan, do not say it because I know you know it, no cheating. Okay, what feeling do you think you're supposed to feel is the right feeling when you're in the learning space? Who wants to be brave enough to guess? Oh, sorry? Frustration. Yes, frustration. So many people, we've learned from our own childhood, from whatever else, that the goal is to avoid frustration. When I have frustration, the sad part is I exit the learning space. I can't do this. When I think about my kids and learning to fail, or really, in my language, learning to struggle, I want them to become experts, not experts at knowing, experts at staying in the learning space. And I'm going to say something that sounds a little controversial. You can brainwash your kids into liking this space. I've done it, okay? Because in some ways, the word brainwash is extreme. We all brainwash our kids. We are the mirror to your kid. You show them who you are, who they are, and you can do that in ways that are unadaptive for their childhood or amazingly adaptive. So I'm just gonna give one example, and I know Aaron's like, Becky, I have a million questions, like, please stop talking. Okay, but I think this is really important. I think about even when my son was really, really young, maybe he was 3, and he was doing a puzzle. He's like, I can't do it, can you do it for me? And you're like, I have 5 minutes with you. This is not really how I want to be spending my time, right? Because it's so hard. But our kids can only learn to tolerate feelings we tolerate in them. Our kids can only learn to tolerate the feelings we tolerate in them. And in a way, when he's saying, I can't do it, if you think about this visual, which, yes, you can draw for your kids. Kids are obsessed with this because they're like, oh, I'm in the learning space. He was just kind of telling me I'm in the learning space, which my goal with my kids is I want you to get comfortable in that space, because the knowing and the success happens whenever it happens, but it always happens in more areas of life and more quickly for the people who can stay in the frustration. So did I want to say, here it is, can you stop whining? I'll do it for you. But in a way, what I'm doing for him is I'm saying, when you don't know something, the space should be like this. You don't know, here's success delivered by me. Now all of a sudden I'm locking myself into a job I really don't want to have, giving him success. And by the way, I'm stealing his capability because he doesn't think he's going to be capable, not of getting to success, but capable of tolerating struggle. Very different. I don't want my kid to feel like they're capable of success. They'll find that eventually on their own. I want them to feel like they're capable of struggling. It's very different. So this is what I said to him. And I just want to say, this is one of my good parenting days. They're not all like this, okay? Don't have any illusions what happens in my house, okay? I said, look, let's take a deep breath. Here's why I'm not going to do that for you. Look, this puzzle is really hard. And you're frustrated. And that's exactly how anyone feels when they're working at something and they haven't figured it out yet. I'm not going to do it for you because the feeling you get when you think you can't do something and then stay with it and watch yourself make progress and eventually figure it out is literally the best feeling in the world. And I actually know that feeling is going to come for you. Maybe not today. Maybe it's tomorrow. And I don't want to take the feeling away from you. And so I'll take a deep breath with you. We can get a snack. I can remind you that you're going to figure this out. But I'm not going to finish the puzzle for you. Helping our kids be good at struggling, especially in a world that gives them so many opportunities for immediate gratification, to me is a guiding principle in raising not only resilient kids, but anti-fragile kids and really confident, capable kids. Are we done now? Is that the full hour?
And scene.
That's all I have to say.
So no, we're not done. I got to push back here.
Okay.
So let's say I invest in my children in terms of getting them help to become better, whether it's better at basketball or better at learning or better at any of the millions of things I might want to be better at. And I have those wonderful parenting moments where instead of jumping in and doing the Lego set for them, like, no, this is going to be your moment, honey.
Yeah.
And yet I find, and I find this with my students too, is everyone tends to recoil at criticism. If I try to help you get better, right? And all this kind of investment requires taking criticism. And so how do we, how would you encourage people to help children learn to appreciate the value of criticism and understand that criticism is love?
Yeah. So I think our kids feel our intentions, not our interventions. And I think this is really important because it's why at Good Inside we think principles and mindset first, intervention second. Everyone's like, what do I do? What do I say? I'm like, do you want to be effective or do you want a quick tip? This is also, again, why I think the stuff on Instagram, and you know me, I love doing stuff on Instagram, but it doesn't have the impact because we don't have a foundation. The foundation matters more than the things you're doing at the top of a building. So I think what's underneath your question is like, what is my role as a parent, right? My role as a parent is not to keep my kid happy, as we've established here already. It's kind of like to set up the conditions for success. And I don't mean success just like getting into Duke, right? Like I mean success in the ways that we all really know matter. Feeling capable, feeling like you can take on challenges, feeling at home with yourself. For me, a big version of success is gazing in to get self-worth, not gazing out and kind of saying, let me show you who I am, let me tell you if I'm good enough, and then I can feel good about myself, right? So what is criticism really? Okay, here's what I mean about intention versus intervention. Like, I'm trying to think of an example of something I would like criticize my kid for. Well, what's an example? Or do you want to use it in the classroom? We could do that too.
So something I would criticize my child for is, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm thinking around this.
Aaron has perfect children. So, and from the audience, what is something where you're like, I feel like I have to give them this criticism to help them, but
Like, you leave your shoes in the middle of the floor? No, but in my room.
amazing. Things that like never happens in my house, but I guess it happens.
Not in mine, for sure.
Okay, right. So that's actually an amazing example. The shoes are, right, your shoes are like right where, I'm laughing because this is like actually happens in my house all the time, right there. Okay, what is your goal with your kid? I'm just gonna guess. Is it to get them to like put their shoes where they are? Right? Consistently.
Where they belong.
Right. Right. Now, I would say that goal is like, I don't know if I could do that every day, but let's say like 80%. How did I do on your first game? 70%. That's the best it gets. So guys, 60?
Whatever you got to tell yourself, yeah. Keep going.
I've never claimed to be perfect, okay? Okay, so I think what we're used to doing as parents, and I'm gonna say this very directly, it is so frustrating to be a parent. Like that, you're like, I've told you a million times to put your shoes in your cubby, right? And we call it criticism or like punishment or they know better when we say things like, what's wrong with you? You know, like just put your shoes away, right? I think all we're doing in that moment is vomiting our frustration onto our child. Just that's what we're doing. We're like, instead of kind of being an adult and learning to regulate my feeling inside so I can do something effective, I just get to like put it on my child and make them feel bad. That's why when everyone's like, do you think not punishing is soft? I'm like, I think punishing is soft. It's so soft. You're just vomiting something random to your kid in the moment. If you don't put your shoes away, no TV tonight. And then if you're like me, you're like, I'm gonna show them TV tonight anyway, right? On Durham, you're like, well, no TV, but you can have your iPad. You know, right? What? Like, doesn't make any sense. Okay, so what is my intention? My intention is for them, not just to listen, but to like take care of their stuff in their house. And I try to ask myself the question as much as possible, what is the MGI? I'm sure some of you have heard me say that. What is the most generous interpretation of why my kid isn't putting their shoes away? What is my most generous interpretation of why the student comes late 10 minutes every day to class? Same thing. Because humans, and by the way, me too, we naturally come up with the LGI, the least generous interpretation, so quickly because that student's lazy. Why isn't my kid putting their shoes away? Because they don't respect me. You're like, wow, all of a sudden this is a matter of like respecting me, right? And then we intervene based on that interpretation. My most generous interpretation would be, and they forget. Okay, so now I have that question of intention. Whenever you're struggling with anyone, you have a choice. Am I looking at the situation like I am sitting here and you are sitting there? What's your name? Chris. Okay, so it's me. Let's say Chris does not put his shoes away, okay? Where it's like me against Chris and Chris is the problem. This is how we naturally look at people when we're frustrated with them. We should never intervene or say anything to the person when that is your mindset. The only mindset in human history that has ever been effective in getting people to change is when instead it is me sitting on the same side of the table as Chris, and together we are looking at a problem. This is a massive life framework that has nothing to do with parenting. It's either me against you, where you are the problem, or me and you together against a problem. assuming this is not some toxic, abusive relationship. This is a relationship you want to be in. So what is a me and Chris against the problem framework? That is where I have the intention of solving a problem together versus the intention of just kind of probably telling Chris he's a bad person and just being annoyed, which is not going to be effective. Here's the difference. If I'm me against Chris, I'm going to say something like, if you don't put your shoes away tomorrow, like I'm not letting you have dessert. Why don't you put your shoes away? Do you not respect me? What is wrong with you? Can you not remember a simple thing? You always remember your phone. I guess you just don't care about what I say. And nobody change. By the way, everyone's like, how are you so good at acting out those things? I was like, because I say those things all the time. Like, it's like, obviously, I say those things all the time. It just isn't effective. So if I'm in a good place, I'll be like, wait, it's me and Chris against a problem. And just watch how different this sounds. Hey, there's something about remembering to put your shoes away that must be hard because, look, Chris, you're a respectful kid. I know you care about things. And so there just must be something stopping you. And you know what that makes me think? When you come in, I wonder if there's something that could be at the door, like some solution that would help you remember, okay? And you want your kid, you want them to come up with it. And you might have to bring them like so close. You might have to be like, I feel like someone told me about notes that have like sticky things. And your kid's gonna be like, Post-its. And then you could be like, yes, oh my goodness, so smart. And then, and this happened in my house this is literally how I solved towels on the floor in my son's room. It was driving me crazy, same thing. And then my son said to me, Post-its. I was like, amazing. He's like, can you write me a note? And this is a really important point. And you say, no, sweetie, that note's to me in your handwriting. This is the thing you're struggling with. And honestly, brainstorming about like what's going on, what could I do, and then letting myself watch me be the one who does it, like that's probably gonna be more helpful in your life going forward than like whatever you're learning in math today. And so no. And then if I had to get more boundaried, and this is where the firmness comes in, and look, because I know you can do it, like I do expect that note up by tomorrow morning, right? You might not have to get there, you probably won't, because again, you're on the same team. And then, again, what is my intention? To help my kid solve a problem. To help my kid know that they will come to me when they have other problems. And going back to the same thing we started with, it always goes back to the same thing. For my kid to build up their identity as someone who can solve problems. You don't solve a problem going forward because you had a parent who lectured you. You solve problems that are new and novel going forward because you've built a process in your head that you can repeat. So now let's say instead it's not about losing something, right? But it's about, I got a bad grade and I should probably go talk to my teacher. You know how amazing it's gonna be when you're a teenager, instead of being like, I got a bad grade, they were like, I got a bad grade. Huh, what can I do about this? I wonder if there's any options. And then this is the important part. I know I am the one who's gonna write that email to the teacher because I'm capable of doing that. And they come home and say, I got a bad grade, I emailed the teacher, we have a meeting on Tuesday. And while you can teach that to teens, it's the same circuit that will or will not get activated based on how they solved their shoes in the door problem early on. So I guess I don't think it's not criticism, because criticism in general, like you know what it is? I think the word criticism, it might not for you. For me, it puts me in a me against you mindset. I just find whenever I'm in that mindset, people feel it and then they get defensive because they feel like we're looking at them like a bad person. But instead, when it's like, this is a thing, and I kind of know you're a really capable, good person, and part of my job is helping you bring that out. What can we do? Then it's not really criticism, it's skill building. And it's, you know, I think we look back on our childhood and we're like, wow, that would have been really nice to have someone who scaffolded skills, but also approached me like I was a good person who was able to bring out my inherent capability.
So let's say, and going into some of the questions that people submitted, 95% of the time, I'm great when my kids don't put their shoes in the mudroom, and I sit down and I go through this whole process because I'm a wonderful parent. But let's say that other 5 times when it, 5% when it doesn't happen so well. And you're in those moments and you look back and you're like, I can't believe I acted like that. I lashed out at them like that.
Yep.
And the question was, how can parents maintain good self-compassion when they know they mess up, when they know they aren't doing their
Great
best?
question. And again, like this whole process, just by the way, it takes 5 seconds. Like it's not long. We fleshed it out to get to the principles. But one of the things I just also want you all to leave with is, I hear this from parents all the time, that takes a lot of time. I just don't have the time. We either spend time preparing or reacting. Most of us, me too, get into cycles where we spend all our time reacting. And when you're used to spending time in a certain way, you just don't account for it. Yelling at your kid, coming up with punishments, enforcing those punishments, not enforcing the punishments. And honestly, because I've been in these stages, staying up at night, feeling like a horrible parent, that is hours of your time. And so I just think that framework is important to ask yourself, like, is it really more time? Or am I just spending time differently? And which way of spending time would end up feeling better to me? But they're both time. So we're really talking about repair. Yeah, because again, all those things I yell, I say all the time too. And no matter how much you learn about parenting, or we tell our members all the time, no matter how long, because that's where we really like do the foundational work. Like you're there, like you're still gonna yell at your kids, and that's not a failure. That's called being human. Even more than learning how to be good at struggling, like the most important thing I really think for parents, or actually in any human relationship to get good at, is repair. That is the ultimate strategy I fall back on when everything feels bad in my own house and I feel like an awful parent. I'll say to myself, okay, today I'm gonna be like amazing at repair. I don't say I'm gonna be amazing at being patient. I just don't like to set myself up for failure. Like if it's a day that I'm like overwhelmed, I'm like, I'm gonna do something manageable, because then I start to feel better. So what does that mean? Repair in general, what it means is you go back to a moment that felt bad. You take responsibility for your behavior. You acknowledge the experience of the other person, and you talk about what you are doing so you can do things differently in the future, right? Or maybe what you would have done if you could go back. I really mean this. Repair makes you a magician. It is the most magical strategy, because memory is not a series of events. This is really important. Memory is an event combined with every other time you've remembered that event. That's actually why therapy is effective. Like therapy is crazy impactful in a lot of people's lives. And if you think about it, it's interesting. You're like, well, my therapist doesn't change the things that happen to me. Why? They change the story you tell yourself about the things that happen to you. They change the environment you're telling those stories. So now instead of things that happened in moments when you were scared and alone, or maybe in moments when people denied your reality, you're in an environment where someone is listening and caring and validating what happened to you. And truly, that actually changes the way the memory lives in your body. It's like, I don't know about you, like to me, I always, that is bananas, for lack of a scientific term. That's crazy. But if you think about that, then you're like, all the things I feel the worst about with my kid, like I have the power to change the way that event lives in their body for the rest of their lives. Because what you're really doing when you repair is you kind of, like if there's chapters of your kids' lives, it's like there might be one chapter. My kids have had chapters in their book that would be titled, Mommy Yelled at Me and Turned into a Monster and I Felt Very Scared. I don't know one person. If one person in here says their kid doesn't have that chapter, you're a liar. Or tell us your secret. I don't know, one or the other, okay? But I think you're a liar. We all have that. But here's the thing. When I go to my kid and I say, hey, you know what? You haven't been leaving your shoes in your cubby. I yelled at you. And I'm gonna say a line that I'm gonna come back to because I know a lot of people, it's controversial. It's never your fault when I yell. And I'm sure that felt scary. And it's my responsibility, even when I'm frustrated at you, to calm my body and talk to you in a respectful way. And I'm really sorry. Okay, we'll come back to the responsibility, but what I'm doing visually is I'm going to the chapter that would impact my kid. And I am reopening it. And I am writing a different ending. And then when you write a different ending of the chapter, the whole chapter gets a different title. It's Mommy Felt Scary, and I felt nervous, and then she took responsibility, and I realized it wasn't my fault, and we reconnected. And if I think about my kids, because the way we relate to our kids when they're young becomes the way they define normal relationships, right? Like if someone said this, it definitely wasn't me. Relationships that feel really good when you're an adult tend to be the ones you're attracted to are the ones that feel like home. That's really scary if there were things about home that felt bad, right? I used to tell my clients in therapy, based on their childhoods, what they know is the people they were like, "Ooh, I'm so excited about this guy I'm dating." And we'd be like, "It's like the best signal I ever heard to slow down." I mean it. And what a privilege if you can have a kid where you say, that's going to be a signal to speed up. Because in general, you don't have a perfect family. But I want my kids to know that what's normal is if somebody treats you in a way that doesn't feel good, you should expect them to take responsibility for their side of the story and come back to you. So every time I repair, I get my kids set up for that. I don't want my kids to think what they should expect is someone who gets it right every time. Someone who's always attuned to their behavior. Someone who regulates their emotion in every instant and never loses it. I don't think any of us think that's like the partner my kid's gonna find one day. Like, good luck, like that just doesn't happen. So it wouldn't even be good for them. And then in terms of it's never your fault when I yell, because I know this. And I will voice inside myself, and I don't know if you do, you're like, well, but like, that's not, they put their shoes away, and I know, okay? But here's the thing I think that like really drives it home. I picture my kid, I'm picturing my son, and like coming home from work at age 30, and maybe as a family, maybe not, I don't know, but I'm here with him and his partner, and he really needed, his prescription picked up, whatever it was, and his partner's like, I forgot. And my son just like yells at his partner. And if then I hear him say, I wouldn't have yelled at you if you remembered. Oh my God, I'd be like, oh my God, that is creepy. We don't yell at our kids because of their behavior. We yell at our kids because we're not regulating our emotions. And the circuits we have in our body around how we are able to regulate our emotions predated our kids' existence. And I think taking responsibility for that is so important, not just for our kids, but again, for what they expect going forward.
So this brings to another question we got a few times, and I can see it in myself too. It's, okay, but those moments where you asked and you asked,
Yeah.
and you asked and you did all the
things.
You summoned the inner Daniel Tiger mom in you, and you sat down, you did the sticky, and it still didn't happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's even go to the shoe thing. Like, I have a rule for myself. I call it the 24-hour rule, because let's say I do all the things, my kid's still not doing their shoes, and I'm like, it's true, I shouldn't yell, but like, I really do need my kid to like put their shoes in. And I was like, I'm gonna repair. And then I am waiting a full 24 hours before I go to my kid. And I'm not gonna say, by the way, remember when I said it wasn't your fault? It was your fault, so let's talk about it. Dr. Becky said I just had to wait 24 hours to say that. That is not the rule, okay? What I would say is, and again, you're gonna be like, this is weird. Becky keeps talking about different things, but she keeps talking about the same thing. This is me and my kid against a problem. Maybe it's not the shoes, because I'll use a different example. They're always late in the morning. Hey, I know we talked about yesterday my yelling, again, my responsibility, I'm sorry. You know what I was thinking? Me and you are on the same team. If you don't say that to your kid once a week, you should. Me and you are in the same team. We both want to have smoother mornings. And there must be something hard in the morning about getting out the door. And this is where, again, you can go back to, before you talk to your kid, what's the most generous interpretation about why my kid would be late over and over? And I think, there's never one right answer to that question. It just gets you in a totally different mindset. It switches you from being, and these are opposites, judgmental versus curious. When you have a judgment about someone, you know the truth about them. I mean, you don't, but you're convinced that you do. When you're curious, you inherently know nothing. And so you're open to a million possibilities. And so you're like, I wonder why. Maybe my kid is having a hard time at school. And as long as they delay, what a smart thing. They don't have to spend as much time at school. Maybe my kid has a hard time separating from me. Maybe my kid is not in class this year with all their best friends, and so home feels extra cozy compared to the school room they're in. I don't know. There's a million things. But as soon as you start thinking, it's not about coming up with the answer. It's just about asking the questions. Because then you say to your kid, what's getting in the way? And honestly, when I say to my kid, I just want to be clear, especially when they're younger, I wonder what's getting in the way. Something must be getting in the way in the morning. My kids, okay, never say to me, I'm so glad you asked. Here's that. Never. Okay? The power is in asking a question to a kid, not in getting an answer. You've already won. And this is, to me, the biggest shift I think we give at Good Inside. Your wins are you. Your wins are what you do. They're in showing up in a way that feels right to you and good to you and heart-centered and aligned. Your wins have nothing to do with how your kids react. That's actually a massive shift. Probably the reason we get triggered as a parent is because we're unconsciously defining being a good parent by how our kid responds in a moment or how they behave in public. You're giving all of your power to your 3-year-old. I really mean that. Or even to your 18-year-old. So disempowering. Your win is in knowing your role, which goes back to, what is my role? No one taught you. That's why we need an education, okay? So then I would say to my kid, what can we do? And again, it's about a real skill. You know, I think about what my life would be if I didn't have a calendar. I would be a disaster. And no amount of therapy would help me the way that it would for someone to be like, you're a calendar? You should have a calendar. And I'm like, oh, that's all I needed. You know, it's nice to be organized. It's nice to know what to expect. You can put 3 things on the wall: breakfast, shoes, backpack, car. And I mean, this is no shade to Pinterest moms. It's just not who I am. I'm like, for me, those pictures, I Google. Picture of breakfast, the first thing I find, I don't even care. Print on the room. The next one is like car. I'm like, wow, that one's tiny. Breakfast is big. It doesn't even matter. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, and that's it. And I'm like, and now also, if you notice, it's me and my kid against a visual calendar versus me against my kid. Kids respond really well when you assume that they need something, as opposed to you assume that they're bad. I would argue that students and adults also respond well, right? Where a kid's bad behavior is not a sign of who they are, it's a sign of what they need. And our job is to be detectives, right, in that way. And so again, does this mean, oh my goodness, this is a secret to never yelling at your kid? No, how we started, 2 things are true. Everyone, when they leave here, you're gonna yell at your kid. It's probably gonna happen today, okay? I'm not even with my kids. They're not in North Carolina. I'm probably gonna, I don't know, I would yell at my kids. These moments happen. It's about repairing more often and being calm more often. Those 2 things are equal goals. I was actually telling the story just this morning, Kate and Seema in the audience, and I just have to say here that I was on vacation 2 years ago with my deeply feeling kid. Oh my God, and so many people were coming up to me, which feels so good. I love meeting people, but my DFK was feeling very emotional about like all these people like stealing my mom from me, and we're at breakfast and someone's like, Dr. Becky, and I'm in your membership and this is amazing. And I kid you not, she looks at her and goes, I just want to tell you she's a really bad mom in real life. And honestly, like the woman left the table and I was like, slay girl. Like, no, like, it's so smart. I was like, wow, you got me. So DFKs, they do not miss a beat. They know how to hit you in the heart and they make every situation a little more challenging. So I've been there. Okay, raise your hand if you know the term. And if you don't, there's like no shame. If you know the term DFK, deeply feeling kid, these are my people. And if you're not, you're about to know it. Deeply feeling kids are my passion project within the passion project that is Good Inside. I had my first kid, okay? And don't get me wrong, he had his challenges, but like, I would do the thing, oh, you're upset. Oh, you're having trouble with the puzzle. Like the puzzle story I told, that was my first kid. And in private practice, I'd have all these parents being like, I swear I'm doing the puzzle thing. But my kid, when I do that beautiful thing, takes the puzzle pieces and throws them in my face, right? And in the back of my head, I was always like, I didn't say this, but in the back of my head, I was like, I think you're doing it wrong. And to their face, I was like, okay, we'll figure out something else. Let's get creative. And actually, I think I am someone who loves being in the learning space. I'm like, oh my God, amazing. Let's get creative. Let's figure out something else. And then I had my second kid. And I was like, I should call all those parents back and be like, oh my goodness, I'm with you. It's so different. Deeply feeling kids, to me, the core way of understanding them is they are more porous to the world. And if you are actually having pores on your skin that are bigger than other people do, more comes in and more comes out. And if you're really porous, think about it, you have to be really hypervigilant because you so know your vulnerability to how easily you could be overtaken that anything that could be interpreted as a sign, as a threat, will be. I remember my daughter, and I was like, those girls are waving. They want to play with you. She goes, when I wave at people, I'm not wanting to play with them. I was like, whoa, okay. But this was like her protection. And then when they explode, it is, and this is where I want you to know and hear, you are not crazy, you're not making up. It is so much more intense. These are the kids where you're like, I'm gonna say it because I used to think this until I understood my own. Like, I feel like something's wrong with them. And then you're like, is something wrong with me? Is something wrong with them? And it's animalistic. A lot of these kids, and maybe if someone wants to be brave, I will, there's hissing, there's growling. It is like so intense. And this is because related to their porousness, their deepest fear, and this is also just true for adults, our deepest fears tend to be the things in our worst moments that we activate, and it's how we then see the world. Unfortunately, we like act out our deepest fears a lot until we figured out all the stuff we can do to not do that. Their deepest fear is that they're too much. And then a lot of parents are like, but sometimes it feels like too much, you know? It's a lot. And so in their moments when they feel vulnerable, anytime they feel vulnerable, they have big feelings. They know their feelings are bigger than other people's feelings. They know they're porous, so when those feelings come up, they know they're gonna come out. And so they tend to feel shame next to their vulnerability. What is shame? It's the fear of disconnection. It's the fear of people won't be able to love me or attach me to me or take me. And shame makes any feeling more explosive. So it happens to be this awful cycle. DFKs feel vulnerable, and they would if they couldn't do a puzzle, especially if you were watching. You do anything to try to help. You can imagine it's like a spotlight. All those feelings get bigger. They explode out with things like hissing, get away from me, I hate you. And you're like, I did the amazing parenting thing. What is happening? Why aren't you rewarding me with your good behavior? You know, which kids don't do. And then, and this is the worst part, and the thing I'm most proud of changing, and I want to change in the world for every parent to know, it's more than I can get into here, but then what ends up happening is like they're in the room, they're like, get out. And we're like, fine, I was just trying to help. And they're alone in their room. And what they learn is, see, I'm as bad and awful and toxic and unattachable as I worried I was. And the whole cycle gets worse until we reverse it. Most of the adults who take our DFK program say, oh my goodness, this was me. Oh my goodness, that's probably why I'm so triggered by it, because I learned I was bad and how to shut it down, and I have to heal that part. I'm just curious, raise your hand if you've done some of our DFK program. Did you cry through it? Me too. Me too. Okay, so what does that mean? It means a million things, and I want to share some things here, but I don't want to cheapen the importance, again, of setting you up for a quick fix cycle where it's like, I'm going to do the thing, but I don't have the foundation. So if that is you, I don't even know what I would say. Like, I hope for you that you really do invest in that next step and take our entire program, because I really believe this, it changes the whole trajectory of your child's life and your own. The thing with DFKs is you can't get that close. But as you hear me saying, when you're like, fine, it's that distant. When kids are really upset, picture them in a house. Other kids besides DFKs, you can go in the front door, which sounds like this. Hey, you're having trouble with that puzzle. Let's take a deep breath. And they're like, sure, come in. With DFKs, you do this, and they're literally like, I hate you, get away from me, right? And they slam the door. But we don't want them to learn that lesson. See, I'm all alone in my house because no one could stand to be in the house with me. So we need what I call side door strategies. A side door strategy for the puzzle might be like this. My kid's doing the puzzle. I'm gonna get a puzzle next to my kid. And I'm gonna go, I can't do this puzzle. It's so hard. There's no way I could do this puzzle. Becky, 1 second. I can't do this puzzle yet. I'm a good, smart kid who's having a hard time with this puzzle. Nope, I can't do it. Yeah, okay. I need a moment. You know what? I'm gonna take a break. And then I'd look at my kid and I'd be like, you know what? Sorry, like this puzzle, it's really hard. I'm gonna take a break. And then I'd walk out of the room. That is the entire intervention in that moment. The antidote to shame is connection. And DFKs, it doesn't mean connection directly, but in some ways, when we have a little more distance, what we're saying is, I go through these things too. And what's going on for you that scares you doesn't scare me. That is the ultimate leader. When you're scared on a plane because there's turbulence, the thing that terrifies you more than turbulence is hearing your pilot scared of turbulence. The thing you want to hear also is not your pilot saying, not a big deal, you're overreacting. You want your pilot to say, everyone in the passenger cabin is scared. That's okay. Be scared. Doesn't bother me. I've done this a million times, and I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I'm gonna get off the loudspeaker because I'm gonna go do my job and get us to the ground. You want them to validate what's happening for you and know it's real, and you want them to have a boundary so that so your feelings don't kind of infect them. You actually need that boundary. And it's interesting, I always think about pilots because they have a cockpit, right? Imagine if in that situation they're like, I'm gonna open up the cockpit door, I don't know how to do this. My goodness, right? No. So that's how I would do it for a DFK. Can I tell a quick story? I mean, I always tell stories.
Room.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna tell the story and then I'm gonna give you some concrete strategies. Okay. I remember seeing a teen in my private practice. This is one of the people who really stands out to me. I think she was like 16. So I'm sitting in my room. She comes in for the first time and she looks at my computer, which was really old. And the first thing she says to me is like, is that computer from 1980? Are you even a real psychologist? And I was like, well. But honestly, if you know me, I was like, game on. Because I love kids. I really love kids who have been labeled as bad kids. I just do. I think they are in so much pain and no one has seen it. So anyway, she tells me, and this is not your son, so I don't want you to go there, but the point of the story is at the end. I was like, why are you here? And she's like, I cut myself. Do you see? I always cut myself. She was like so snarky. And I was like, oh. I was like, well, how long have you been doing that? She's like, 2 years. And I was like, do your parents know it's been 2 years? She goes, yep. And I go, why haven't you seen a therapist? Why didn't you come to see me or anyone earlier? And she goes, well, 2 years ago, my parents found out. And they told me, we're gonna bring you to a therapist. And I said, oh, so you think I'm fucked up? So you don't love me? So you think, oh, you know what? You know what I'm gonna do? First of all, I'm gonna miss a lot of the appointments and I'm just gonna lie and I'm gonna waste all your money. And my heart always races when I tell the story. And I thank goodness something in that moment just said, and this is actually the best parenting strategy, to do nothing. The most underutilized strategy, because when you're doing nothing on the outside, you know what you're doing? You're regulating your emotions on the inside. I did nothing. And it took a little while. Her whole demeanor changed, okay? All of a sudden, the snarkiness went away. And I saw this as like a parable in her life. Like she gives it, people give it right back, and it never gets to it. And she looked down. And then she finally looked up to me, and she just goes, can you believe they let me make that decision? I will never forget that. And what it means to me is, again, too often we take our kids' words as their truth and not their fears. When we're in a bad place and we're dysregulated as adults, definitely true, we speak our fears, never our wishes. That's why for a DFK, get out of my room, when they're like throwing things, they're saying, I'm terrified people can't stay with me. Okay. And what it tells me is parenting is such a hard job because when you're making the best decisions, when your kid is struggling with something, all you're gonna get is pushback, and you never get a thank you note. In our membership, too many people haven't seen the thank you note I wrote from a DFK. It's what I needed in my own journey. She'll never write me that note, maybe now, honestly, she's a totally different kid, but it's the note I needed to know about long-term. We don't usually get it. If we do, it takes 20 years. It told me something about boundaries, and it told me something about connection. So how does this relate to a 15-year-old? If our job isn't to make our kids happy, but to set up the conditions for success, also true as a CEO, also true as a professor, we have to think, are there things I'm doing unintentionally and with good intentions that get in my kids' way of having enough discomfort to go do things that are conducive with their developmental stage? Here's what I mean. My 2 older kids are really big readers. And by the way, I'm not even a big reader. Do you know why they became good readers? Because most other options were even more boring than reading. That's why. Because I created that condition around, no, there's like, and once you have a couple of weeks of no iPad time in certain hours, like your kids are like bored. One day they're like, I guess I better figure out something to do. So when I hear about teens, and again, I obviously don't know your story, my kid doesn't leave the house. I was like, well, if we allow our kids to play video games for 5 hours or even be on their phones texting, YouTubing for 7 hours, that's not a condition in which they're gonna be bored enough to tolerate the awkwardness of saying, hey, let's go do something in the outside world, going back to struggle. And when I think about the teen being like, can you let me make that decision? It makes me think things like this. And again, same team. Where are we doing phone rules here? And if after this, not today, you want to tell me I'm on my phone too much, I'm actually totally open to that, but this is separate. My job as your parent is to kind of make decisions that I really believe are good for you, even if you're unhappy about them. That's the most important part of my job, and frankly, if I'm honest with you, it's the hardest part of my job. And one of the decisions I'm gonna make is how much you're allowed to be on your phone even after your homework is done. I am. Because I know for me, as long as I'm on my phone, I basically have the desire to do nothing else because it's the easiest, most effortless, dopamine-filled activity I can do. And I'm not gonna let that happen to you. It doesn't matter if you go to play basketball, but it's gonna be doing other things. And you're gonna be unhappy, and you're gonna complain, and you're gonna think I'm gonna break because I've changed before, but I'm not today. Because I know my barometer for success is not your reaction. It's doing something that I know is important, and I have a support group of people I'm gonna text on the side and be like, remind me why I'm doing this, etc., right? So important, those conditions. Okay, next. One of the best things to do with kids at any age, and I just did this with my kids, and it's so important as a teen, is actually to say to them, what is one specific thing I could do better this week to make me a better parent for you? I actually asked my 2 younger kids this last week. If you want to know, my youngest goes, you know how sometimes you're working on your computer and you're like, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute? Can you just say, even if it's like, can you say 5 minutes, 8 minutes, and then not also look at your computer when I'm trying to show you something? And I was like, roasted. Yes. And then my daughter said, when you put me to bed at night and I always have to do one more thing. She goes, Mom, I'm just someone who always is gonna have to do one more thing at night. That's what she said. And this is my DFK who used to have even harder time separating. And I realized this is like part of her thing. And it's doing one more thing. I have to get ice for my water is definitely better than it used to be, which is screaming for 5 hours, right? And she goes, and then you always say, come on, get ready. I gotta go do something else. And she said, that's the last voice I hear before I go to bed. Could you work on that? Okay, I was like, truth bombs. Yes. And more than the things which I needed to hear, right? The best bosses ask for really honest feedback from their reports. Again, imagine your boss asking you that question. Imagine your partner asking you that question. Again, the power is in the question. And so a lot of this, I think, comes back to actually everything core we do at Good Inside. Am I setting the boundary I need to set? And I think we used to think boundaries were like punishing. It's not. That's desperation. That's why it's soft. Boundaries are embodying your authority. That has nothing to do with the power dynamic. It's just knowing you're the pilot, right? And then after that, It's deepening connection. And the last thing I'm going to say is when you feel stuck with your kid, the single best strategy you have are stories about yourself. Okay, and then okay, I was actually just talking about this on a podcast. I'm going to say it here because I think it's counterintuitive. My youngest, when he was like 3, my resilient rebel who feels very capable, was watching our family do a puzzle, the rest of us. That was really hard. And he just like couldn't really help because he was not able to at that age. Anyway, we all took a break from this puzzle. He was like building on the side, I don't know. And I come back and like a lot of the puzzle pieces are gone. And I was like, I know he took them, right? And of course, in my reactive moment, instead of doing nothing there and pausing and regulating, I did nothing in here. And I was like, I know you took the puzzle pieces. I know you took them. Just tell me where they are. We're in the middle of a puzzle. And I think I tried. I was like, I know it's hard when we're doing a puzzle and you can't do it, but I really need them. And he was like, I didn't take them. And then like, it took a while. I was like, this is not working, right? I always think in life, we can be right or we can be effective. You usually can't be both in a relationship. And so this is what I did like an hour later. Because like in this moment, and you'll probably all have situations like this, you're stuck. You're like, I'm just stuck. My kid's not taking it in. What do I do? I sat him down and I said, and this is my favorite lead-in, and you'll see why. I want to tell you, you know what? No, I can't tell you. It's so bad. I can't tell you this thing I did. What do you think? What would you do if someone said that? You're like, yeah. Especially if it's your parent. Like imagine your boss. You're like, what did you do? Okay. And I go, okay, I'm going to tell you. When I was 7, and this is a true story, my sister had these oily stickers. And I really wanted them. And I took them. And then my mom asked me if I took them. And this is the amazing moment, one of the amazing moments. I was like, do you know what I told her? And he goes, you probably told her you did, and I go, no. I told her, no, it wasn't me. Why are you blaming me? That's really mean. I didn't take them. And my son literally was like, oh. Okay. And I was like, I don't know. I wanted them. I wanted to be a part of that. And then when I knew it was wrong and I just couldn't tell her, I felt stuck and it was just really hard. I feel like I have my husband here after who's like, are you going to tell him you gave him back? And don't we have to punish him? And I was like, no. And I think when you feel really secure in your parenting, which again comes from actual resources, you trust it more than you trust any moment. And I was like, let's wait a couple days. Let's just wait. I really mean this. It doesn't always happen. 3 days later, randomly, he came to me with the bag, hysterically crying. And he was like, I took them. No matter how old your kid is when they're stuck, telling them a story that's imperfect, don't make it, and then I gave it back and I felt so much better. That's not really how real life works. Telling them a story and using that lead-in, I can't tell you this, so bad, is so powerful. So telling your teenager some story, being a teen, feeling like you were disappointing your parents, not whatever it is, I feel like is, and probably some of you realize this, is like an ultimate side door strategy into their house. Okay, I'll answer your last question quickly, I promise. I'll try.
I would say, well, it's funny. You were talking about you putting your kids to bed and saying, I need you to bed so I can go do the thing. And last night I just did that to my kids. I said, I need to go prepare for Dr. Becky to come. And so
You were channeling me.
I was. Thank you. So rather than I think a better wrap up is to invite you back to come. I think we all give her a huge round of applause. We'd love to have you back, and let's call it part 2 of this conversation.
And look, I just want to say, as you all leave, carving out time, especially on a day where snow is coming in 6 hours. No, but really, it says a lot about you. And I really think we all have narratives from our youth, from other things of I'm not doing enough and I didn't do this and I messed up my kid. And and actually we can't get rid of those narratives. So I think it's just good to say hi to them and recognize that the loudest stories we tell ourselves are often not the truest. They're just the most practiced. And that like today could be a day that you really build up a new narrative, which is just like, I did something really powerful for myself, for my family. A lot of you said you made people come to like be with your kids to come here, which is saying I prioritized something I wanted to do, even while it inconvenienced someone else. Cheers to that. It's the only way you get your needs met. And let's just end by like really in your own voice. I don't even want it to be in mine. I swear it's more powerful if it's your own, by saying to yourself, like, I did something important. I made this happen. Being here mattered. And you're all amazing. So thank you.
All right, thank you everyone so much for coming. Again, I will force Becky to come back. I'm sure it will be a very hard sell. How'd you like being back on East Campus? Can you refresh
I
me?
really think I had class here. How new is it?
It opened our freshman year.
Okay, so I had
That's
class
nice.
here. That's wild.
That's wild.
I mean, it's so wild. So yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Here, thank you.